You don't buy a machine like this for subtlety. You buy it for presence, pressure, and that moment when combustion turns into emotion. And at the heart of this thing is not just a V8, it's a statement of engineering excess. Before we talk numbers, before we talk performance, we need to understand what this engine actually is. Because the Mercedes-AMG biturbo V8 inside the G63, especially when touched by BRABUS, is not just powerful, it's deliberate. It's an engine designed to move something that, frankly, physics says shouldn't move this fast. We're talking about a body-on-frame SUV shaped like a brick, with the aerodynamic profile of a refrigerator. And yet, it accelerates like something half its size, and twice as slippery. So what's going on under the hood? This is AMG's handcrafted V8, typically known as the M177 or closely related architecture, a 4.0-liter biturbo unit. But that displacement figure doesn't tell the full story, not even close. Because AMG builds this engine around a very specific philosophy: compact packaging, extreme thermal control, and explosive torque delivery. The block itself is aluminum, lightweight compared to iron, but reinforced for massive internal pressure. Inside, you've got forged components, crankshaft, connecting rods, pistons, all built to survive repeated high-load conditions. This is not an engine that lives an easy life, especially in something like a G63. The bore and stroke setup leans toward a balance between revving capability and low-end torque, but make no mistake, this engine prioritizes torque. Because torque is what moves weight, and the G-Wagon has plenty of that. Now let's talk about the layout, because this is where AMG does something clever. The turbos are mounted inside the V of the engine, what AMG calls a hot V configuration. Instead of sitting outside the cylinder banks, the turbochargers are tucked right in the middle. And that changes everything. Shorter exhaust paths, quicker spool, reduced turbo lag, tighter packaging. But it also creates a thermal nightmare. You're concentrating heat right in the center of the engine, and that means cooling becomes absolutely critical. AMG addresses this with an intricate cooling system, multiple radiators, oil coolers, intercoolers, all working together. The intercoolers themselves are typically air-to-water setups, which allow for more consistent intake temperatures under load. Because when you're pushing boost, intake temperature control is everything. Hot air kills power, and worse, it invites knock, which this engine absolutely cannot afford. So the ECU, the brain of this operation, is constantly managing boost pressure, fuel delivery, ignition timing, all in real time. It's not just about making power, it's about making power safely, repeatedly, and predictably. Fueling is direct injection, high pressure, atomizing fuel directly into the combustion chamber for precise control. This allows higher compression ratios than older turbo engines, while still running significant boost. And that combination, high compression plus boost, is what gives this engine its character. It doesn't feel like a lazy turbo motor, it feels immediate, urgent, alive. Now let's talk about the sound, because that's where things get emotional. Cold start, early morning, you press the button, and the engine fires with a deep, aggressive bark. Not a polite startup, not a gentle idle, this is a statement. The idle settles, but it's never completely calm. There's a slight tremor, a subtle vibration, reminding you that 8 cylinders are firing just inches away. And in a G63, with less insulation than a luxury sedan, you feel more of that mechanical presence. Blip the throttle lightly, and the response is immediate, a quick rise, then a sharp drop, like the engine is impatient. That's throttle mapping, combined with turbo readiness, giving you that sense of immediacy. Now imagine pulling out into city traffic. Low speeds, stop and go. This is where many high-performance engines feel out of place. But this V8, it's surprisingly manageable. The torque comes in early, very early, so you don't need to rev it out. Light throttle, and the engine just moves the truck effortlessly. There's no strain, no hesitation, just smooth, controlled acceleration. But press a little deeper, and you feel the turbos start to wake up. It's not a sudden hit, it's a swelling force, building quickly, pushing you forward with authority. And because of that hot V layout, the lag is minimal. You're not waiting, you're reacting. Transmission plays a role here too. Typically a 9-speed automatic, tuned by AMG for aggressive yet smooth shifts. The engine and transmission are constantly communicating, predicting your inputs, preparing the next gear. So when you ask for power, it's already halfway there. Now let's take it to the highway. Rolling at around 50 miles per hour, steady cruise, everything feels calm, composed. You press the throttle, not all the way, just enough. And suddenly, the engine transforms. Boost builds, torque surges, and the G63 starts accelerating with surprising urgency. This is where the engine's mid-range really shines. That 50 to 90 miles per hour pull, it's relentless. There's no dramatic spike, just a continuous wave of acceleration. And because of the gearing, the engine stays right in its power band. You hear the exhaust deepen, the turbos whistle faintly, and the entire vehicle feels like it's being pushed by an invisible force. Now, about those power figures. Depending on the version, especially with BRABUS tuning, you're looking at numbers that climb well beyond the standard AMG output. BRABUS doesn't just tweak, they re-engineer the ECU mapping, increase boost pressure, optimize airflow. In many builds, you're talking about horsepower figures pushing into the 700 range, sometimes even higher. Torque? Massive. The kind of torque that makes a heavy SUV feel almost light. But numbers don't tell you how it feels. What matters is how that power is delivered. And this engine delivers it with authority, but also control. Now let's talk about 0 to 60.